Welcome to the story. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and support me. It was supposed to be an ordinary field trip, or so Liam thought. He'd always loved space and the planetarium with its dark dome ceiling, covered in twinkling stars. But tonight was special. The meteor shower was supposed to be the best in years, and his class had been invited to stay late for a night event at the planetarium. He had been nervous as usual, sticking close to his best friend, Ben, who was more than happy to lead the way. "Come on, Liam, it's just a light show. Nothing to be afraid of," Ben said, grinning as he shoved his hands into his jacket pockets. Besides, here they were giving out free pizza afterward. Liam laughed nervously, pushing his glasses up on his nose.
"Yeah, I guess."
The night air was cool, and the dome of the planetarium loomed over them like a giant bubble of secret. As they entered, the lights dimmed and a soft voice welcomed them to the show. Mia and Sophie, two girls from their class, joined them as they settled into their seat. The soft hum of anticipation filled the air as the presenter began to talk about the constellation. Suddenly, the ceiling shifted. The stars above seemed to glow brighter, more vibrant, as if they were real, not just projection. The audience gasped in awe as the meteors started streaking across the sky. But there was something unusual about this display. One meteor in particular stood out, a bright burning star that seemed to grow larger as it raced toward them. Before anyone could react, the meteor broke through the ceiling of the planetarium, filling the room with blinding light. Liam felt a tug in his chest, like something was pulling him upward, and then everything went black. When he opened his eyes, Liam wasn't out in the planetarium anymore. He was lying on his back, staring up at a sky filled with unfamiliar stars, each one dim and flickering. The ground beneath him was soft like moss, but the air was thick with an otherworldly hum. He sat up quickly, heart pounding, and saw the others scattered around him, Ben, Mia, and Sophie, looking just as confused. "What happened? Where are we?" Maya asked, her voice shaking slightly. "I don't know," Liam muttered, standing up and brushing off his jeans, "but I don't think we're in the planetarium anymore." Ben was the first to fully stand, his eyes wide with wonder as he looked around. This is awesome. We must have been transported to some kind of alien world." Liam wasn't as enthusiastic. "This doesn't all feel right, Ben. Is that too real?" Before they could speculate further, a figure approached them from the shadow. He wore long, flowing robes that shimmered like stardust, and his face was old yet filled with the light of 1,000 galaxies. His presence was calming, but carried an air of urgency. "Children," the man said in a deep, echoing voice, "welcome to the interstellar kingdom. I am the astronomer, and you have been chosen as the guardians of the stars." "The what?" Sophie squeaked, hiding slightly behind me. "The stars of this kingdom are dying," the astronomer continued, unfazed by their confusion. "A dark force, known as the Star Eaters, is consuming them, and without the light of the stars, our world and many others will fall into eternal darkness. You have been brought here by the stars themselves to restore balance and save us." Liam felt a cold pit of fear in his stomach. "But we're just kids. How can we help?" The astronomer smiled gently. "Each of you possesses a power, a connection to the stars that you have not yet discovered. But in time, you will learn. Your journey will not be easy. The Star Eaters are formidable, and the Dark Lord who commands them is relentless. But you must succeed, or all will be lost." Ben, ever the fearless one, stepped forward. "Okay, so how do we stop these Star Eater things?" "You will need to recover the lost stars," the astronomer explained. "Each star holds a unique power, and they are hidden across the kingdom, guarded by creatures of darkness. Only by reclaiming these stars can you restore the light and defeat the Dark Lord." Maya, always the thinker, raised her hand slightly. "What happens if we don't find them in time?" The astronomer's face darkened. "The stars will vanish, and with them, the life and light of this world. But I have faith in you." Liam's heart raced as the gravity of the situation sank in. This was no longer a simple night at the planetarium. This was real, and the fate of an entire kingdom rested on their shoulders. He looked at the others. Ben says determined face, Mia says calculating expression, and Sophie says wide-eyed wonder, and knew they had no choice but to trust. The astronomer raised his hand, and 4 beams of light shot down from the sky surrounding the children. Each beam connected with one of them, filling them with a strange warmth. Liam could feel the energy pulsating through him like a living star had taken root in his chest. "These are your star powers," The astronomer said, use them wisely. Now your first task is to find the Star of Courage. It lies in the Valley of Shadows where the Star Eaters have hidden it. Be careful, for the shadows are treacherous, and not all who enter return. With that, the astronomer faded into the background, leaving them alone once more. The four of them stood in stunned silence for a moment, unsure of what to do next. Well, Ben said, breaking the silence, guess we better get going. Liam hesitated, glancing at the dimming stars above. Yeah, I guess so. They set off the landscape around them, a mix of alien beauty and eerie desolation. Strange twisted trees reached up toward the sky, their branches like clawed hands. The ground beneath their feet seemed to pulse with the same rhythm as the stars, but the further they walked, the darker it became. Soon they reached the edge of the Valley of Shadows. The place lived up to its name. An ominous mist rolled through the valley, and shadowy figures flickered in the distance. Liam could feel the weight of the darkness pressing in on him, making it hard to breathe. This place gives me the creeps, Sophie whispered, clinging to Mia's arm. We have to keep going, Mia said, her voice steady despite the fear in her eye. As they ventured deeper into the valley, the shadows grew thicker and the temperature dropped. Liam's heart pounded in his chest, but he forced himself to move forward. They had to find the Star of Courage. Suddenly, a low growl echoed through the valley, and dark shapes began to emerge from the mist. Star Eaters. The creatures were like living shadows, their bodies shifting and twisting as they moved. Their glowing red eyes locked onto the children, and they advanced with terrifying speed. Run, Ben shouted, grabbing Liam's arm and pulling him along. They sprinted through the valley, dodging between rocks and trees as the Star Eaters chased them. The creatures were relentless, closing the distance quickly. Just when it seemed like they were trapped, Liam felt a surge of energy course through him. Without thinking, he raised his hand and a brilliant beam of light shot from his palm, striking one of the Star Eaters and causing it to dissipate into nothingness. Liam stared at his hand in shock. What was that? Your star power, Mia said breathlessly, her eyes wide. You did it. There was no time to celebrate, though. More Star Eaters were coming, and they needed to find the star. They pressed on, their pace quickening as they neared the heart of the valley. Finally, they reached a clearing, and in the center stood a massive shadow beast guarding the Star of Courage. The beast was enormous, its body made of swirling darkness, and its eyes glowed with malevolent energy. We can too fight that thing, Sophie said, her voice trembling. Yes, we can, Liam said, surprising even himself with the confidence in his voice. The group prepared for battle, their star powers glowing faintly in the darkness. Ben charged forward, first using his strength to hold off the beast's massive strikes, while Mia and Sophie worked together to distract it with bursts of light. Liam focused on the star, knowing it was the key to defeating the creature. With a final surge of courage, Liam unleashed his power, a brilliant beam of light that struck the Star of Courage. The star erupted in a burst of energy, filling the valley with light and vanquishing the shadow beast. The Star of Courage floated gently into the sky, its light restored, and the valley was transformed from a place of darkness into one of beauty. As the children caught their breath, the astronomer reappeared, his expression full of pride. You have done well, he said, but this is only the beginning. There are more stars to be found, and the darkness will not rest. The Star Eaters will grow stronger. Liam nodded, a newfound determination in his heart. The children stood in the clearing, the light of the Star of Courage still shimmering above them, casting a gentle glow over the valley. Liam felt a strange mix of exhaustion and exhilaration. They had done it. They had actually found and restored the first star. But he knew it was just the beginning. The astronomer's sound words echoed in his mind. There were more stars to find, and the darkness would only get stronger. Ben wiped the sweat from his forehead, his usual bravado softened by the weight of the journey ahead. Well, that wasn't so bad, right? He said with a grin, though his eyes betrayed the exhaustion he was feeling. Mia rolled her eyes. You call nearly getting eaten by shadows not so bad. We've got a lot more ahead of us, but Sophie, still holding onto Mia's arm, looked up at the sky where the Star of Courage now twinkled brightly. It's so beautiful now that it's back. Do you think we can really do this? Save all the stars? Liam didn't have an answer for that, but he knew one thing. They didn't have a choice. The stars were counting on them. The astronomer's soft voice cut through their thoughts. Your next journey will take you to the mountains of knowledge, where the star of wisdom awaits. Be prepared for this challenge. Will test your minds as much as your heart. Mia perked up at the mention of wisdom, already thinking ahead. Mountains of knowledge sounds like my kind of place. Ben groaned. Great, more brain stuff. Just what I needed. Liam smiled faintly at his friend's banter, but he couldn't shake the nervous flutter in his stomach. They were headed into unknown territory again, and this time it wasn't just their courage that would be tested. They would need to be smarter, quicker, and more united if they were going to survive. Without much more discussion, the four of them set off, following the astronomer's silent guidance. The valley faded behind them, and soon the terrain began to shift. The landscape became rockier, the ground rising beneath their feet as they climbed toward the distant peaks of the mountains of knowledge. The air grew colder, and the sky overhead seemed darker, the stars flickering faintly, as if fighting to stay alive. They walked for what felt like hours, the silence between them heavy with unspoken fear. Finally, as they neared the base of the mountains, they saw it. A towering stone archway carved into the side of the cliffs, covered in ancient runes that glowed softly in the dim light. Mia stepped forward, her eyes wide with fascination. These symbols, they look like some kind of code. I think I can read them. Liam, Ben, and Sophie watched as Mia ran her fingers over the stone, muttering to herself as she tried to decipher the rune. After a few moments, she smiled triumphantly. Got it. It's not a puzzle. If we solve it, the door will open. Of course it's such a puzzle, Ben muttered under his breath, but there was no malice in his voice. He knew they needed Mia for this. The puzzle was intricate, involving shifting stone pieces into specific patterns that mirrored the constellations above. It took Mia several tries, but eventually the archway rumbled, and the massive stone doors slid open, revealing a dark passageway leading into the mountain. Nice work, Liam said, giving Mia an encouraging smile. She grinned back, her confidence growing with every challenge they faced. They stepped through the archway, the air inside the mountain cool and still. The passageway was narrow, forcing them to walk single file, and the walls were lined with more glowing runs that seemed to pulse as they moved deeper into the mountain. The further they went, the more oppressive the darkness became. The flickering light from the runes barely illuminated the path ahead, and every shadow seemed to shift as if the mountain itself was watching them. Suddenly, the passageway opened up into a vast chamber, its ceiling lost in darkness. In the center of the chamber stood a massive stone pedestal, and atop it, floating just out of reach, was the Star of Wisdom. Its light was faint, barely a flicker, compared to the Star of Courage, but it was unmistakable. But before any of them could move toward it, the chamber rumbled, and the ground beneath their feet shifted. The shadows on the walls began to peel away, forming into dark humanoid figures that surrounded the pedestal, their glowing eyes fixed on the children. Mia stepped back, her eyes wide with fear. What are those things? More of the Star Eaters, Liam said, his voice grim, but they were different this time, smarter maybe. Ben clenched his fists, ready to fight, but Liam stopped him with a hand on his shoulder. We can try, you just charge in. This is a test of wisdom. Remember, we need to think this through. Mia nodded, her mind already racing. There has to be a way to get to the star without fighting them. They regarding it. But why? Liam glanced at the shadows, then at the pedestal. Maybe they were not guarding the star from us. Maybe they were guarding us from the star. Sophie looked confused. What do you mean? I mean, the Star of Wisdom might not be something we can just take. It's as a test. If we try to grab it without understanding it, we could be walking into a trap. Mia's eyes lit up with understanding. Of course, the star isn't just about being smart. It's about understanding the consequences of your actions. We need to prove that we are worthy of its power. Ben frowned. Okay, but how do we do that? Liam looked at the shadows, then at the others. We need to show them that we are not a threat. We need to approach the star with respect, not force. It was a gamble, but it was the only plan they had. Slowly, Liam, Mia, Ben, and Sophie approached the pedestal, their hands raised in a gesture of peace. The shadows watched them intently, but they didn't move to attack. As they reached the pedestal, Liam stepped forward, his heart pounding in his chest. He extended his hand toward the star, but he didn't grab it. Instead, he closed his eyes and spoke softly. We don't seek to take your power for ourselves. We are here to restore balance, to protect the stars. We understand the responsibility that comes with this. For a moment, nothing happened. The shadows loomed closer, their eyes glowing brighter. But then the star of wisdom began to glow, its light growing stronger, and the shadows faded back into the walls, their forms dissolving into the darkness. Liam opened his eyes, and the star floated down into his hand, its light warm and steady. He turned to the others, a relieved smile on his face. We did it. Didn't he have time to celebrate, though? As soon as the star was restored, the chamber began to shake and the passageway they had come through started to collapse. Ren then shouted, grabbing Sophie's hand and pulling her toward the exit. They sprinted through the crumbling passageway, dodging falling rocks and leaping over cracks in the floor. The mountain seemed to be coming down around them, but they didn't stop. The light of the star of wisdom guided their way, and just as the ceiling began to cave in, they burst through the stone archway and into the open air. Panting and exhausted, they collapsed on the ground outside the mountain, watching as the entrance sealed itself behind them, trapping the darkness within. Mia sat up, wiping the dust from her face. That was ... intent. Ben laughed, though. It was more from relief than humor. I thought we were goiners back there. Sophie looked up at the sky where the star of wisdom now shone brightly alongside the star of courage. 2 down, she said softly. How many more to go? Liam looked at the stars, his heart heavy with the knowledge that their journey was far from over. But for the first time since they had arrived in this strange world, he felt a glimmer of hope. They had restored 2 stars. They could do this. The astronomer appeared before them once more, his expression serious but proud. You have done well. Guardians, the stars are returning, but your journey is not yet complete. The star of unity awaits you at the core of the galaxy. This will be your greatest challenge yet, for the Dark Lord himself will be waiting for you. Liam swallowed hard, the weight of the task ahead pressing down on him. But he wasn't alone. He had his friends by his side, and together they would face whatever came next. Let's go, he said, standing and offering his hand to Mia. She took it with a determined smile, and the 4 of them set off once more, the stars guiding their way.